Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another webinar brought to you by CargoNOW in collaboration with the Chartered Institute of Logistics and Transport Singapore. My name is Joe Lombardo. I am the editor of the Logisim magazine. Logisim and CargoNOW are sister publications. And also joining me today as my co-host is Bob Gill. Bob is the general manager for Southeast Asia, and he works for the ARC Consulting Group. Welcome, Bob.
Good morning.
The topic of our webinar today is about food, the food supply chain. It's about the fast, safe, secure, the food delivery challenge. And joining us, our guest panelists are Ms. Kelly Tan, an independent food logistics consultant, and Mr. Iskandar Abdullah, who is the head of the platform safety at Grab Singapore. Welcome to all of you, and let's get started. Okay, so ladies first, of course. If I'm going to ask both of you, can you share with us a little bit about your background, your experience, and some of the achievements you've can share with us to date?
I started my career with a 3PL. I think it's quite an expected route for people in the logistic industry. I had the opportunity to move through various industries, as well as from a 3PL to a 4PL to a shipper that eventually buys logistic services, as well as then managing the entire food chain. I had the experience of managing the entire food supply chain for a couple of years, all the way from import, export, and all the way to the restaurant. And my most recent position was actually in hospitality in an American company. So today, I'm actually an independent consultant to mainly SME that is in the food industry on process improvements.
Excellent. Thanks for that, Kelly. Iskandar, what about you? I know you got also quite an interesting career path.
That's pretty impressive, Kelly. I don't know how can I beat that. Well, for myself, it's very different. I've been in Grab now for 1.5 years in my current appointment as a head of platform safety. So again, in this current appointment, I don't just look at Grab food. I look at all the different verticals that Grab has for our customers and consumers, right? But prior to this, you know, my previous chapter was in the army. I was an army officer for the past 2.5 years. I specialize more into the training industry, more into the operations as well. My last appointment in the army was as a training development officer in training and doctrine command. My last command appointment was as a company commander, and right now I'm a NS Battalion 2IC for one of the reserve NS motorized infantry battalions.
Interesting.
So nothing to do with logistics yet, but I think you know, in the operations field, you work very closely with, you know, the logisticians, the supply officers. So I can get a pretty good grasp on how they really support operations. So I'm quite privileged to be able to be on the other side now, to be working, you know, more on, I would say a hybrid of both, right? Understanding what supply chain is doing and seeing how that meets into our operations and meeting our customers' demands.
Yeah, thanks, Iskandar. That's very interesting, because in fact, most of the breakthroughs and innovations always come through as cross-fertilized industries. So that's interesting. We'll come back to some of your experiences later on. But Kelly, if I can come back to you first, because obviously your experience in this industry is quite extensive. Now, with the continuous changing business landscape, do you feel the industry is keeping up to date with the realities that we are faced with today?
I think I would like to apply my famous 80-20 rule where this is concerned. I think 20% of the companies that I'm seeing, and I would say that mainly these are the chain and the MNCs, they are really what we call the trendsetters with the best industry practice. And they're able to keep up to date with what the industry is asking for. And at the same time, they're like the role model for the rest of the players in the market.
Right.
Then we have the remaining 80%, which I think would benefit if they were to do like a fast adoption to be able to stay in the game. And of course, within these 20%, there are the lowest 20, within this 80%, I mean, they're the lowest 20% that I believe is struggling to stay in the game. As we can see every day, there are businesses that is actually in delivery that is no longer listed in the platform.
Yeah. And what do you think is going to happen to that? Are you going to see a fallout of these poor performers, or the people are struggling, or is there something you think going to change or help them to move forward?
I really think it's a natural business marketplace. If you don't change to gap up, I would see the lower 20% gone pretty quickly, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Excellent.
So Iskandar, so I think Grab Food is probably one of the leaders in the food delivery sector, if I can say so, but I'm sure you must be facing issues, some challenges as well. Maybe you can let us know about some of those.
Hey Bob, thanks for that. I think definitely COVID has really changed the entire food delivery landscape. So if you were to ask me what the key challenges, right, it would definitely be the unprecedented growth that we're seeing in merchant onboarding, delivery partners onboarding, whether they are driving cars previously, they want now to be a GrabFood delivery partner. So that's what we are doing, right? We are expanding our reach to help this merchant grow their business. We are also helping, these delivery partners to earn a flexible income during these very difficult times. So while we do that, while we are growing our business rapidly, it's certainly welcomed, right? But we got to ensure that if you want to be the industrial leaders, you got to maintain that kind of same standards that we were offering pre-COVID. And that's what we're working very hard, both from the offline as well as the online initiatives that we are pushing to all our consumers.
So you say it's a happy problem then for you?
Yes. I'm happy. You got to work really hard to ensure that people remain happy.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so let's move on now to a different angle. I want to see your views, both of your views on two aspects. One is the customer, and the other one is the industry. The changes that are occurring today are quite significant. Now, if I can start with you, Kelly, how have customers' expectations changed in these new market conditions? Clearly, we've been forced into staying at home. We've been forced to bring in our food deliveries, etc. But something more is happening in the market, isn't it? Maybe you can share with us some of your thoughts.
I feel that there is really an unprecedented reliance on food delivery. I think pre-COVID, or rather in the past, it was mainly an occasion thing where people would call for food deliveries, and usually they're like fast food or maybe mid-range meals. For example, Japanese ramen or sushi, or you could have Italian pizzas and pastas. But I think current situation is deliveries is for all occasions, and in fact it becomes like the new norm, where everybody calls for a delivery regardless of occasions. We know that there was like this huge queue during the Mother's Day and Father's Day just a couple of months ago. Right. And I think also the spread that is being provided now is wide. You have like hawker food all the way to 10-course Chinese dinner, and it's all delivery, which has not been like that in the past.
Okay, that's interesting. So you're saying that the range of demand is grown. Yes. But what about the expectations and the quality and the service? How, obviously, with a big explosion in demand, something has to give. Have you seen this as a problem, or do you expect it could be a problem?
Actually, I tend to think that the expectations of consumers have not changed. Okay. But because of the wide range of people that's in the chain now, it is very difficult to guard the same amount of, the same standard that we used to.
Right.
Like what Mr. Iskandar said, right? With so many people that is on board, I think that is where the challenge comes.
Okay. So let me ask Iskandar the question then. Obviously, with this big boom and this big explosion in demand, how did you adapt your operations to meet these new expectations of both demand, but also the quality and service that our consumers are now expecting? And I think you have a slide on this, right?
Yeah. So I think the key thing here is, we need to be aware of who our stakeholders, right? Who is part of this ecosystem, and how Kelly has aptly pointed out, right? We need to ensure that our consumers are happy, our merchants are happy, our delivery partners are happy. Let me just zoom in on the consumers part here. Yes, they are relying a lot more on food delivery, and they get really upset, especially on when their food are being delivered late. It's understandable, right? I mean, work from home basis, the circuit breaker that was done previously. So they rely greatly on the service that GrabFood offers them, and they get truly upset when the food is received either it's a wrong order, or even worse, it comes in late. So what we have to do is manage the expectations from all angles, right? You got to ensure that we grow our supply, in order to grow our supply, it's easy, right? But to ensure that the quality of the supply meets how it was pre-COVID, that's not so easy. Right. So I'll cover that in the subsequent slide. That's one thing. But the key thing here is really about the agile communication that we have to understand that all three parties play a part in this. So for the COVID situation, it's really to ensure that consumers is you will get your food fast as much as possible. But number three is also safe. And then finally, you will have the means for you to ensure that you don't have to see our delivery partners. You can arrange for a contactless payment, contactless delivery, just to give them a sense of mind during this very difficult situation.
Okay, that's interesting, Iskandar, and yes, we will come back to that because you talked about fast, safe, and secure, but we'll come back to those in more specific details. So how have you set these new priorities in the organization to meet these changes? Because this is also very interesting to see how you've adapted. And I think also a slide on this one as well.
Mm-hmm. I think for the priorities part, our priorities has never changed, right? Grab has always been, we are established because we want to ensure safe service, secure service. And, I sound like I'm repeating myself here, but it's really important for us to really understand that throughout our whole operations, our product changes, in meeting the merchant and the consumer demands. So
Right.
if you look at, on the slide here, safety has always been our priority, right? As we move up, we are not saying that we will notch it out. In fact, we are stepping up on our safety and hygiene efforts. So we are investing a lot in our product to ensure that we give that sense of security that, hey, Grab understands what are your concerns, and we will also ensure that we deliver that same kind of quality to you. This is not just for our eaters, yeah. This also applies to our merchants and our delivery partners, especially, who are out there, serving the Singapore community. So I think that what the delivery partners have done are tremendous. Yes, they are not our employees, they're our partners earning flexible income, but they are putting themselves out there. So we got to ensure that they're safe as well.
Okay, we'll talk about
one of the key things.
Yeah,
sorry, Joe, just want to add on a little bit quickly, right? So if you look at the regular reminders, what we have done now is just to send out more messages. That's the comms part, right? To our merchants, to our eaters, hey, your food has been received, so try to consume it really quickly. If not, you can store it safely and reheat it later on.
Right. Okay, we'll talk about the delivery partnerships later on, but on the slide here about safety as a priority, how are you driving this? What's stimulating you to take these initiatives? Is it legislation? Is it some compliance regulation, or are they innovative ideas that Grab is bringing to the market?
I would definitely say that it's more of number three. I mean, you can't be in the industry leaders if you're not setting the benchmarks for others to follow, right? So while we are very cognizant of the regulations that's imposed on us, we also know there's a lot of flexibility for us to move, and that's where Grab operates best, right? We know what are the different gaps that we need to address, and we address them quickly. So back to your question, Joe, it's really about how we address the gaps as innovatively as possible.
So do you consider yourself a leader in this field in the market? Are you driving? Are you leading? Or are you very close following? Give us some insight into what's going on.
Well, not too much, but yes, definitely we aim to be the leader, Joe. Definitely, no following anyone, man.
Okay, that's good to hear. Okay, so let's come back to the point you mentioned earlier on about delivery management, because clearly with the network that you have, the expansion of the delivery network, the frequency, I can see people delivering cups of coffee and then small stuff versus the 10-course meal that Kelly was talking about earlier on. So explain to us, how are you managing this aspect of the last mile delivery? Because this is also the critical part of the pipeline.
I think this is where tech comes in very heavily, right? So what we do is we're able to manage an effective batching of services. We look at, there's a few parameters and considerations that we look at, right? So we look at the number of orders. We see whether we can stack or batch these orders together and to be able to deliver them in the fastest way possible. Now, we don't set a SLA or a standard timeline for our delivery partner to meet these orders, right? Because what happens then, they will drive behavior, right? We want them to be safe on the road while they're doing this, but be aware that this food needs to be safe, needs to be delivered to the best possible condition to our eaters, right? That's one thing. The other thing is that we also, with regards to our supply, there's like a certain hot zones that we have to ensure they can grab the food fast. So the meeting the supply and the demand are very key towards how we leverage our technology to enable that.
Right. So, but how do you achieve this balance between speed and safety? Because very clearly you are right. We shouldn't rush and pressurize the drivers and to cause any accidents or incidents. But how do you achieve that safety aspect with a timely delivery and a satisfied customer at the end of the pipeline?
Yeah, so if you look at the slide, Joe, thanks for that. If you look at the ensuring safe allocation, these are really the 4 key measures that to me, we have taken very, very actively and strongly, right? Especially on the allocation of booking types. So in meeting the COVID demands, we have actually expanded our radius, right? We have, if you look at our Grab app, we do have from some restaurants, they took up this island-wide delivery. So it's important that we don't tag, obviously, right, the 2-wheelers, right, those on motorbike or those on bicycle, to be delivering this island-wide delivery, right? We will then rely on our 4 wheels, right, our transport Grab food delivery partners to be able to handle this kind of distance demand. So that's what we do.
Right. There are 3-wheeler bikes as well, by the way, because even safer. Okay, that's great. So Kelly, these initiatives are great to hear and to see, but are they enough? And could we see more needed as the evolution of this expanding delivery market is going?
Actually, I would rather, maybe let me just try to come from the restaurant perspective, right? Because that's where I came from,
Right.
and not so much from the Grab, or rather the delivery perspective. I think the existing players that have been doing deliveries before the pandemic definitely are able to meet the requirements. But with the change in the business landscape as well as the volume, I think there's a constant need to step up in terms of both process as well as technology improvements. But for those new players, I think what happened in the past is they are more used to dine-in customers, as well as customers that actually take away, but it's the customers themselves. So it's the consumers themselves that actually do the takeaway. But today we're actually relying on a third party that's doing it in maybe a large scale manner. So how can they gap up in terms of even simple things like the packaging requirement? Like how they prepare the food, what kind of packaging do they use, how do they do the handling and taking over with a third-party contractor? I think those are what the new players really need to think through before they can really hop onto this segment of the business for them.
Yeah, but Iskandar can't be responsible for that because he's at the end of the tailpipe. So upstream, are there enough initiatives upstream to be addressing the packaging, the freshness, and the security?
Definitely. Right. And I think that is where the challenge is with a lot of restaurants who have not been doing that, right? So they don't know how to do it. How can they package their food so that it can be handed over to a third party, travel across 5 kilometers and still be able to reach safe, hot, fresh, neat, and no leakage?
Kelly, you said earlier on, clearly this has been an expanded consumer base. Before it was just a casual takeaway, now it's becoming more mandatory. Do you think legislation may be needed to regulate better this takeaway new craze or new demand? Or do we have enough legislation around for that?
I think that today there's not much.
Not much.
There are some guidelines. I'm sure Iskandar is familiar with that, but they're not much. Of course, there are more that we can do, right? But to a certain extent, we are still very much dependent on individual in this last mile delivery. So there's only a limit on how much you can actually impose. It is still a lot of players in the last mile that I think needs to be responsible in what they are doing to ensure food safety and security.
Right. Yeah, I understand that. So you say not much legislation, but it could be a good thing to have something more to regulate the upstream, and then the handshake between the producer and the delivery. So there's a much more robust pipeline for this type of business.
And what I mean by legislation, it's not just purely on Grab, right? I'm also coming from a restaurant point, right? How they handle the food, how they pack the food, how long do they leave the food there before, for example, Grab or its competitor come and pick it up. So today there isn't really clear guidelines on any of those.
Right.
Yeah.
Clearly, our topic is about fast, safe, secure delivery, a challenge of our food supply chain, and clearly we have health matters, concerns, and also time service, and also the variety that is now evolving. So, Iskandar, by virtue of your deployments and actions, and also the comments that Kelly just made about a need for ever continuous gapping up to the new challenges. How resilient do you think your system is now, and how much further would you have to drive your processes to increase the robustness and resilience of your services?
Well, I want to say that at this current moment, I'm confident to say that we are resilient enough to ride through this COVID wave. But again, this COVID has really taught us, a lot of key lessons, right? To ensure that we are able to manage our stakeholders properly. I think, when Singaporeans give us feedback about how GrabFood is operating, I mean, not just in Singapore, but throughout the whole region, I think the whole idea, the notion is Grab is responsible for everything that's to do with the last mile delivery, right? And that's what Kelly pointed out, right? And what you said, Joe, as well, right? It has been an upstream effect. Like, how are merchants doing their job? And then for our delivery partners just come in, collect the food safely, and then give it to the customers. And when the customers receive it, I don't think that the job ends there. I think they also have to take ownership over the food and ensure that they are taking it and keeping it properly, right? Or consuming immediately once they have it. They can't tell Grab that, hey, the delivery quality is really poor. We accept those feedbacks, as you can see from our future initiatives. But the thing is that the onus has it's not just down onto Grab. But we are also aware of our responsibility as a key player in this last mile delivery industry. So we take full responsibility over it, and that's where the whole communication, stakeholder management, partnership truly comes in. So we are currently focusing our efforts really into working with the merchants and our regulators like SFA.
Right. So basically, you feel that there's an important point of linkage here. You are the last mile delivery, not expert on cooking, but the producer is cooking, but not expert on last mile delivery. So how is this collaboration working? Are you actively driving collaboration? Is there a coming together of the minds? Because it's all about a mindset change, a culture change.
Yeah.
How is that evolving?
Where we comes in, Joe, I feel that we are in a very interesting position whereby we are like a middleman, whereby, you know, from an ops point of view, we are the middleman, but from communicating what the eater is having and then giving their feedbacks back to the merchants and improving this entire system, I think we play a key part in that. And we kind of thrive being in that kind of environment. So that's what we've been doing. So I'll share more later, Joe, in the subsequent slides.
That's very interesting. Thank you for that, Iskandar and Kelly. I think I pass on to Bob now, because I think I can see some interesting questions coming through from our audience.
Yes, Joe, let's go to the first question. This is about the extensive use of single-use plastics, plastic bags, plastic cartons, plastic utensils. So what can the industry do to demand a change to perhaps environmentally sustainable packaging? Iskandar, we'll give this question to you.
This is a tough question. Thanks for that, Tim. What we have done thus far is really working the merchants to go about encouraging them to do this. Again, it's going to be tough for us. I think there are a few a few merchants who have, you know, really worked with us very closely on that. I think the key ones will be, hey, Joe, I can drop a few names here, right?
Sure, drop a few names without any prejudice.
Sure. I thought that I'm very impressed with how you know, McDonald's do the, you know, collaboration with us. You know, in terms of, you know, if you were to realize how if you were to order McDonald's from us, and those packaging that they have, you know, it's super solid, I feel, right? In terms of the recycled bags, and most importantly, the temper evidence stickers, so that you know that no delivery partner has touched it. So we've been trying to get more and more merchants to go about doing this, but we don't control the business, you see. We don't regulate the businesses. So it's about getting their buy-in for them to understand that this is what our consumer really is asking for these days. So, you know, it's down to you to do it for us. Number two is with the bubble tea craze, right? Boba tea craze. So Liho is another one of our partners, whereby they agreed to collaborate with us to have this, I would say, to a certain extent, a biodegradable straw. So every time you order drinks with them, you will see this biodegradable straw with a Grab food packaging on these straws. So it delivers that similar common message, whereby our merchants and Grab are pushing towards environmentally friendly and sustainable efforts.
But I think the question
this
was,
is a shared responsibility between the delivery and the merchants. Is that correct? That's what you're saying. It's a shared issue.
I think our job is to communicate and influence them, but whether they get it done is down to them, really, unfortunately.
Okay, Kelly, any thoughts on that issue? Is it all about the merchants?
Actually, I tend to think that it is more on the merchant than on Grab. That's what I think. I think Grab is more of a like a middleman, really, in the entire chain. They can try to influence, they can try to convince, they can try to confuse, but eventually, I think it is the merchants' maybe their own corporate strategies. I have ordered ramen before that comes in styrofoam box, which is obviously not environmentally friendly, but I have it in paper box, paper cups, and even the packaging that they have done is all biodegradable, it's all paper-based. So I think it is really up to individual merchants, whether is it aligned with their corporate strategy.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Joe, we can go to another question here.
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, let's go to the one here about safety and standards, and what kind of standards is Grab in particular following in terms of, are you using things like ISO 21000, HACCP? Where do those standards play into your business?
Wow, I wasn't expecting this question, to be honest. I would have to go back to look it up. I think the key thing that I wanted to, you know, deliver to my fellow panelists here, as well as to the audience right there, is that most importantly, we are a tech company, not so much a logistics company. So while this is something that I would definitely look up, whether we are adhering to any form of international food standard, I don't have the answer. So I'm so sorry about this. But yeah, I'll bring it back to myself and check it out.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Maybe I can add a little bit
Yeah,
about
go,
that.
Kelly.
I think at least for the upstream, I think a lot of the restaurants, as well as maybe the facility that actually manufacture the food, they are guarded either by the HACCP or the ISO 22000.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And we have another question here about, for a merchant, how quickly can they link up with a food delivery company like Grab? How long does that process take?
Okay, thanks for that question. Thanks. Sorry, I'm just trying to make sure that I give the right data to you. So I'm looking back with my Grab food partner. Yeah, so it's really fast, really. Like I said, right, I think COVID has really prepared us to partner with merchants and onboard them real quickly. Based on the latest figures that I've got, I think it can be as quick as 3 hours. All you have to do is just go to the link, Tim, we can take this separately, and then, you can get onboarded with us right away.
Right.
Okay, 3 hours, that's pretty impressive, yeah.
That's great. Okay, so let's move on and come back to some questions. I know questions keep coming in, so I want to move on to the next sections about technology in the food supply chain, and particularly the last mile delivery, but across the whole pipeline. Now, Kelly, one thing that you've mentioned earlier on is about gapping up to the new realities, whether it be packaging, whether it be communication, whether it be relationships. But how is technology being deployed in the last mile delivery, looking from an upstream? And is it enough to guarantee the safety and secure objectives that we believe are necessary as we are going into this new dimension, this new dynamic of consumer demands?
I think today, well, I'm sure Grab is already using technology to a large extent. They could be using, for example, instructions of making sure that halal and non-halal food are separated. They're probably tracking locations of the deliveries, the duration of time that their vendors actually wait at the merchants, maybe even the temperature of products when it is in the delivery box. But I think there is much more that we can do. Not so much of using technology for tracking, but actually more for data analytics.
Okay.
And I think that is where the big numbers really tell. For example, how can a customer have better service experience? For example, a total shorter lead time. How can that be possible? Right. I know Iskandar mentioned that they're stacking orders, but how many orders are they stacking? Can they further stack orders? Can they further shorten maybe even the merchant's duration for preparing the food? Right. You see, Grab again is stuck in between, right? If the merchant does not prepare the food, no matter how fast the delivery guy is waiting at the shop, they can't get the food to be delivered to the consumer house. So how can the merchants then get the order as fast as possible and prepare it as fast as possible in a delicious manner, of course? So I think there is indeed a lot more that the upstream data can help in.
Right. But yeah, you mentioned that, and again, as we said earlier on, this is a boom. It's changed the dynamic of the way you work in preparing food. Is technology being used also for quality control? Is there some way that it can be applied for quality control to avoid maybe some of the disparities of the quality at the end of the line?
I think one of the key things in terms of quality control is really temperature monitoring, right? Right. Yeah, especially in Singapore's hot weather, I think that is where it can really help to ensure the safety of the food that when it's being delivered to consumers' house. Right. I still think that ultimately, no matter how much technology comes in, because there are so many parties that are actually involved in the last mile delivery, there will always be like that 0.001% black sheep who will ruin the reputation of their last mile delivery in the industry.
So Iskandar, having heard what Kelly said, and also what the questions from the audience are about the quality, the standards, etc., and we all understand that even Grab has been caught by surprise of the change of the behavior, of the demand, of the scale of demand, and it clearly to adapt. So there will be standards coming in. There'll be maybe some legislation, but again, how are you using technology? I know that you have some ideas or some deployments in tracking. But for example, are your packages now secure enough or adequate enough to maintain the quality, the temperature that we were just talking about a little while ago?
This is definitely something that, again, Joe, I don't want to use this as an excuse, but we really are the middleman, right? So when it comes to the packaging and all these things, we can really influence, but like what Kelly said, it's really up to the merchant. So really pretty much upstream. But let's focus on the things that we can control, as a delivery I would say, company, right?
Okay.
I think the key thing here is really about making sure that one, we have delivery partners, right? That's where the supply comes in. Next,
Right.
our job is to ensure that they are able to deliver it safely. So as you can see from the slides,
Yeah.
from the thermal backpack to the halal bag to the mini sling bag, these are, to me, bread and butter issues that we must equip and continue to equip our delivery partners, right? So they need to understand all these proper hygiene and food practices. And it changes, right? So if regulators tell us that these are the things that they need to be mindful of, then we need to do something. And if I can just share with you here that Grab, actually, I think we are the first and only company right now that actually have an enforcement team down to the ground to continue educating the last mile delivery partners. So while they are waiting at shopping malls, for example, we'll be there to tell them, hey, you got to be mindful about how you're handling this food. Make sure you wipe these bags properly before you put them in. So we try to do our best, right? Obviously, our supply base is huge. And most importantly, I need to stress again that they are not our employees, they are our partners. So while we want to show care and empathy towards what they are doing, be out in the hot sun, delivering, our Singaporeans their meals, at all the random timings. But we also need to ensure that they are responsible in handling the food that they're delivering for them.
Right.
That's number one. And then number two, I wanted to just use this opportunity to extend a bit further, right? We've spoken a lot about technology as well. I wanted to share with everyone here that if you look at the left of the article, whereby we unveiled new safety initiatives for our power-assisted bicycles, delivery partners, we know that they are a bit more, I would say, more risky, more dangerous to be on the road. So what we have done is partner with, NTUC E2I to ensure that they have the same kind of, a very comprehensive online and face-to-face trainings. In fact, what this, what they're holding is, we call it a Grab helmet. So we partnered with Lumos, which is another tech company, which is currently based in US, but it's a Singaporean company, whereby they can just, make sure that they're well illuminated on the road. They can just use their app to actually control and indicate, to the motorists whether they are moving to the right or to the left. So we need to ensure that they're clearly visible, be safe on the road so that they're able to do their job and return back to their families.
Right.
I think that's the key thing. Tech goes through that food safety portion. Tech, we're also using it in terms of how our riders are delivering the food safely to the eaters and then going back home after a good day's job.
Great. Iskandar, I think you're doing a lot of stuff. I can see that you are really probably leaders in this field. But as I said, there's a lot of challenges. Your job is very challenging. So I'm sure a lot of good ideas are going to come forward. We've got some more questions and we are running out of time. So Bob, I pass it back to you because I know there's several questions, excited people that want to ask more questions. So please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. We have a question here for Kelly. Question about, from the restaurant's point of view, do you see 4PL logistics becoming popular? After, sorry, carry on.
I think that 4PL is not exactly a very popular mode of engaging logistics partner in Singapore, but it's a very, very common practice in US. Right. I do not think that pre-COVID, post-COVID, there is any significant change in logistics model for most of the restaurants. I think what they are changing is more of the processes to be able to meet the different business needs because of their consumers' requirement. So before that, maybe they don't do takeaway. Now they need to do takeaway. So what is it that they need to do to make sure that they take away? I don't think they're at the level where they really look at the entire strategy to say that, ooh, let's try a 4PL model today. Yeah.
Interesting.
Okay. We have another question here. This one is about households that prepare and sell food online. What are the things that the Grab can do to assure safety for this kind of selling model?
I'm not trying to grow or promote our business here, but GrabFood is just one vertical, right? And then you've got that Grab Express, and now we have GrabMart, and both of these are growing, in parallel move with GrabFood as well. So regardless, as a head of platform safety, I look into Grab Express and GrabMart as well. And I would like to say, Bob, that we apply the same kind of standards across the board. Obviously, there's certain gaps, and we are very open to suggestions on how we can go about regulating this. We try not to do what the regulators are supposed to do, right? But we apply the same principles that you've done for GrabFood, which is a bit more mature, to also extend it across to these household deliveries, right? So when it comes to delivering food on Grab Express, it can be, prepared food. It can also be frozen food, right? So that's where we need to be a bit more mindful about how fast we use our tech and our supply to ensure that if it's a frozen food, you better reach it faster than a prepared food, for example. right?
Okay.
And the packaging will be a bit more different as well.
Right. Right. Okay. And another question, quite an interesting question. Has Grab ever considered ranking restaurant
Mm.
partners, those with good practices and maybe those with not such good practices that need improvement?
Raman, it's for Raman, right? Yeah, great question. I think in our future initiatives, which is the next slide, I will share a bit more about this, right? How we talk a lot more about how we need to collaborate more with our merchants. So we are actually coming up with a merchant quality framework, and then they'll be
Oh,
given a scorecard. Yeah,
oh, okay, interesting.
yeah,
Okay, good. Okay, Joe, back to you.
Okay, great. Thanks for those very tough questions to Iskandar, but he's not doing very well. And obviously, the higher up the ladder you are, the more challenges you'll get. Okay, so Iskandar, come back to you, because clearly there are lessons to be learned. And you yourself said that it's been a mind-changing experience, what COVID's taken us through. We're all learning. We're all having to readapt.
yeah,
We're all having to change from what we did
yeah.
before. So there's no differentiation now. We're all starting from the same starting block. So what are the lessons that companies should most take note of and position themselves post-COVID-19 as we ride out of this crisis? In particular, what is Grab doing and what have you done? Because I know that you are very passionate about this subject. And we got a slide, I think.
Yeah, so if you look at the future initiatives, I think firstly, we take full accountability of our position right now, as an industry leader. We are aware of the responsibilities that we have in terms of delivering food safely and securely, right? And I think one of the key lessons that I personally myself are heavily invested in over the past few months is really about contact tracing. So before I even go into this future initiatives, what I realized is that we play a very important part in terms of supporting government in terms for their contact tracing efforts. So just to share, when it comes to contact tracing, when we had one of our merchants whereby the staff was tested positive for COVID, right? So we had to pull out all the delivery partners who has been to these stores that have been closed down because of this particular incident, right? And we had to do it fast. And I can share with you that within 24 hours, we were able to trace 1,000 over delivery partners, call them, tell them that, hey, you went to a restaurant and you picked up a food whereby one of the staff have been tested positive. You just need to ensure that you're okay. If anything is wrong, please let us know. But the fact that we're able to do it so fast and collaborate closely with this, merchant, I thought that was pretty impressive, personally. And that's what we have to continue doing because we have the means to go about doing it. So we can't just say that we want to be industry leaders in setting the safety standard and then we take a back seat and not do anything about it. So I felt that, we have proactively do it, and this is something that we'll continue to do. Now, moving on to the future initiatives part, very quickly, just to summarize everything here, this is where we are hoping to work onto the upstream effort. That means really improving the quality of what our merchants are delivering. Again, we are just the middlemen. We are not the regulators, but we want them to know that these are the feedbacks that we are receiving from the consumers, right? So we used to only send them, hey, you've got this kind of incidents, but now even when there are any feedbacks, we will just tell them. And that is where back to Ramon's question that we are coming up with a integrated quality management system. So for the merchants, they will get their own scorecard. So this scorecard can be in forms of many feedbacks, right? From their food safety, how the eaters are feeling about the quality of the food, the standard of food, the packaging of the food, etc. So the merchants will know exactly where they stand as compared to the other competitors in the market.
Okay.
Yeah.
So why are you doing all this, Iskandar? What's all this for?
should we show the next slide, Joe? I mean, we need to do all these things, right? So that the quality of the food, it remains good, right? And that when it goes to the eaters, right, the eaters are receiving the same kind of quality, from what they are getting if they were to eat it in store as well. Yeah, I mean, really, this was all about.
Right. Okay. So let's show one more slide, just to see the challenge. Yes. So there's some of the challenges that Iskandar and his team have to go through. I hope not every day. These must be some exceptions. But anyway, so okay, let me come back to Iskandar just to wrap up now the question. Iskandar, clearly you're doing a lot, and for us consumers, it's been an enlightening experience to see what you guys are doing, because we only like to complain, but we don't appreciate what's behind. So today you give us an enlightening picture of what really is behind and the things you're doing, and there's some very serious actions and plans in the pipeline. So if you had to summarize now your takeaways, what are your takeaways from this discussion about fast, safe, secure, the food delivery challenge?
That we gotta go beyond being a middleman, really, right? I mean, we also do not want to, you know, say that we want to be the regulators. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm just saying that our responsibility increases truly.
Right.
And I've said it at the start of this webinar, and I'm going to reiterate it again. I think the whole proposition of Grab is to move Southeast Asia forward, and we do this from the quality of our service, the quality of our relationship with our stakeholders, and we need to continue doing that. So this is definitely our key takeaway, whereby the reliance of Grab food in particular during these difficult times, and we want to continue, you know, earning and winning that trust. And as we move forward, continue to grow our business. And we don't do this alone. And that's where all our stakeholders play a very important part. You know, even in my preparation of this webinar, when Kelly, you know, reached out to me and think about certain processes that Grab can think of, I truly appreciate that. And I think that's what it's about, right? It's about doing this together. And to me, this is my main key takeaway.
Okay. Before I ask Kelly the next question, I believe there's a question from the audience. Someone from Oman has an interesting question then to ask. Bob, do you want to take that?
Yes, we have Warith from Oman who's coming in live. Can we get Warith on the video?
Yeah. Good morning, all. This is Oman. Good morning. Probably good afternoon to you guys.
Good morning. Sabah al-khair alayk.
Yeah, nice to see you all. And it was actually quite an enlightening and very insightful into that last mile delivery. Well done, Askalan and Kelly Tan, for giving us really good insight of what's really happening in Singapore. Anyway, as you probably know, that in Oman, we are starting to think about this kind of things, about last mile delivery, but it's very in infancy, and there's a lot of challenges. So it's nice, I think, that to hear from people like yourself, which are very experienced, yeah. But at the same time, it is a challenge. And I've heard this story about the 4PL and in terms of the portal. And I totally agree with you, Kelly, that the 4PL is not really it's a hands-on thing. Whereas this is more like a portal where there's a lot of communication taking place rather than the actual physical connection. So my question is that, you know, how can we share best practices on such matters? You know, Oman is getting into this. You guys are very experienced in it. How can Oman share best practices with you people?
Anyone like to take that? Kelly or Iskandar? Spreading best practices over to the Middle East?
Kelly, what do you think? You want to go first?
Sure. I think we start from zero as well. I think one of the way that we can share best practice, I guess, is to maybe, I don't know, webinars like that. And I think that getting a good partner, if you were to ask me, who has experience in last mile delivery will probably make your learning curve a little bit better. So maybe, I don't know, Grab could start a branch in Oman.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Totally agree. As you said, we don't have the time now post-COVID. So we need really to accelerate, and you can't start from scratch as you guys have done it so many years. You can't condense that period very quickly. So such experiences in terms of food safety, security, so many different things. You know, you can't do it in a week or two. So,
and you can't build a platform overnight as well.
Yeah.
So yes.
Thank you.
Industry point, that's what I suggest, having a partner that already has the know-how.
Yes.
Yeah, just to add on, Warrior, to what Kelly has said, I think for Grab, we're just fortunate, right? Because really we are based in Southeast Asia. So we are operating in 8 different countries. For Grab Food, it's 6. So whatever, you know, we try to do it in one market. If it works, we then cross-share with 5 other markets as well. So even Grab as a company, we are learning from each different market, you know, segmentizing it, hyper-localizing our efforts. But at the end of the day, it's making sure that whichever country or region that we step on, we are the industrial leaders. That's always been our aim. Definitely, I agree with you that we shouldn't start from ground zero. But I really hope that, you know, it's something that we can share, you know, with you moving forward from this webinar.
Yes, please. Just connect up, and I think people may have my number. If you want, I can send you my numbers, no problem. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you for the question.
Thank you.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much. So it just leaves me to ask Kelly for her takeaways to this topic and where she feels we are going.
I think I would like to leave just 2 words. I think problem solvers.
Okay.
I think we're in this area that nobody know what is going to happen next. What is the next problem that we are going to face? I think supply chain personnel, where this is concerned, not just from a Grab or rather delivery point, I think even from a restaurant merchant point, and even from a procuring, from an upstream, from a freight forwarding point, I think supply chain personnel role has never been more of a problem solvers than today.
Excellent. That's very wise words. Thank you very much, Kelly. I would like to thank Kelly and Iskandar for your very valuable insights. We've challenged you a little bit, Iskandar, but we really appreciate what you guys are doing. So, and I'm also very encouraged to see that you guys are listening. Your mindset is open, and you are taking this very seriously. Unlike just, you're walking the talk, and that's very important. I'd also like to thank Bob for his collaboration in co-hosting this webinar with me. And I thank all the participants who have joined us for fielding the excellent questions. We have answered most of the questions, a couple more, but time, unfortunately, does not allow us to go any further. So I thank you all very much. This is the 3rd in the series of food supply chain security. We've got one more coming on the 21st. So that'll be 4 series of webinars on the topic of food supply chain security and safety. Again, thank you all very much. Much appreciated. Have a good day and have a good weekend. And a good long weekend and happy National Day to all the Singaporeans. All the very best. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.